An interesting report from the Athletics' Ken Rosenthal and Will Sammon around Anthony Santander and Jack Flaherty, two of the best names on the market, also two of the best fits for the Atlanta Braves. We need a starting pitcher. We're looking for, quote unquote, a playoff caliber starting pitcher. Jack Flaherty is that guy. We've said a million times how much we need an outfielder. There's not a better option right now than Anthony Santander. And Ken Rosenthal and Will Sammon are saying that these two guys are now considered shorter term, higher AAV deals. And when you talk about the Atlanta Braves, that's right up their alley. So if this is true, hopefully there are no opt-out involved because the Braves don't do player opt-outs, but it could be a good situation for the Braves to finally strike in free agency less than a month away from spring training.
Yeah, they kind of reference those Blake Snell, Matt Chapman deals from a year ago where they are getting higher AAVs on shorter deals. Now, those did have opt-outs, so that would be a key difference. But yeah, this just feels right up the Braves' alley. Now, exactly paying a 30-year-old, I don't understand it. From Flaherty's perspective, I think it's a little different. But we're like a 30-year-old outfielder coming off the best year of his career from a power perspective, 44 home runs or 45 home runs, I think it was. It's kind of like cash in now. Like, what team is really going to be interested in you next year if you blast 44 home runs?
Well,
again? Like, that's
I think the issue with Santander is I that's why the opt-out thing wouldn't really make sense for a guy like him, because you're right. Well, how's it going to get higher?
Power is something that leaves very quick.
But I think the bigger thing is more teams are not willing to give him 4 or 5 years.
Well, the Blue Jays have that offer down. Nobody knows what it is, but it's apparently a longer term. Lower.
Let's be real about the Blue Jays. They can't convince anyone to really go there that's any good. I mean, for whatever reason, they've tried to get everybody. Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani, they've offered. I literally thrown the book at some of these guys, and even
let me ask you a question: would you want to live in Canada?
I mean, Canada.
I'm just kidding.
Canada, no, but Toronto is a 6th city from what I hear. So, I mean, there would
just
be.
Kidding,
I would at least want to go visit. And when you're that rich, does it really matter? Like, you're traveling all over the world, and then off season you're in LA.
True, you're literally not
you're not. You're not even really there. But I think Santander getting a shorter term deal makes sense because he's really only good for one thing, and that is power. And even though he's coming off a great year and he's been one of the more consistent power hitting outfielders in all of baseball over the last 4 or 5 years, paying a guy who's strictly just one dimensional and offers one thing, it's like paying Marcell Ozuna $120 million. It's just probably not going to happen even in this market. Now, we've seen the pitcher market explode, but the outfield market and stuff like that has been pretty standard. Like Teoscar Hernandez didn't get this crazy deal.
That makes sense. But in Flaherty's case, that doesn't make sense. But in Flaherty's case, it does make sense where his question isn't necessarily age. It's, the injury concern, so that if he could perhaps prove he can not only be productive, but be healthy and be productive for an entire season again, he could really cash in, but that's not the case.
Well, Flaherty to me is kind of one of those a perfect opt-out candidate. He's a perfect.
He is. That makes way more. This report makes way more sense for him than Santander.
Well, I think Santander, like I said, he's just getting shorter term deals.
Right.
That's what I think.
Right.
The opt-out
Unless
thing,
a desperate team.
The opt-out thing is more, I would say, up Flaherty's alley because he does. Right. He has another year like he did this year and does it back-to-back seasons. He'll be 30 years old, just like Max Fried. He's not a lefty. He doesn't have quite the track record, but he'll be cashing in $140, $150 million if he does that. So I could totally see him signing a 2-year, $60 million deal with a player opt out after the first season.
And that would be interesting for me if I'm the Atlanta Braves. Worst case scenario, when he's been healthy, he's been productive mostly. So your worry is injuries. And I know for a lot of Braves fans, that might scare us because, the rotation has suffered a lot of injuries. We already do have some concerns on the roster. But, if your worst case scenario isn't necessarily underperforming, it's getting injured. I mean, you got to take that because injuries in pitchers are synonymous nowadays.
Yeah, it's not it's more money that it would be, obviously, if you're actually willing to do one of these player opt-outs, but it's not too different than going and getting Chris Sale, who hasn't been healthy in 5 years, and then giving him an extension before he even throws a pitch, right? It's not too ridiculously
just a belief
different.
that he can be healthy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit bigger of a gamble, but it's not too significant. I mean, what they give Sale, $23 million or something like that. It'll probably be a little more expensive for Flaherty. But at the end of the day, if it's just an opt-out after year one and not like a 2-year opt-out, like a 390 or something like that, and he can opt out after year, or, stick it to you for 3 years. Right. I think it's something that a gamble that's not too significant, but I think it's going to have to be, if they were able to do a player opt-out, which they strictly do not do.
Really, never.
Do not do. It's like a Braves thing. Like, just don't do it. It's like, it's a non-negotiable for the organization.
Mutual, and the mutual could be the injury thing, where it's not necessarily, like, it's not something very serious. Maybe the
thing is, Alex, someone's given it.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like, someone will give him that player option. I would be shocked unless everyone looked at Jordan Montgomery and said, "Ooh, that was terrible." And even Blake Snell, you get the production, but then he just leaves. Like, there's no win in those player option deals. So the Braves are absolutely right never to agree.
You're right.
There's really just no winning in this situation. You're just
desperate teams.
Yeah, desperate teams have to do it. The Braves aren't desperate, which is why we haven't seen him make a deal like that in the past.